Alright guys, so I've been kind of working on this for a while, doing some testing in the background. The Icy Breeze cooler. It's an air conditioning cooler. It's different than a swamp cooler. It actually has a heat exchanger. Cold water runs through these tubes, gets pulled up. There's a line you fill it to. It'll hold up to 30 pounds of ice. I've found so far that block ice works the best, just because it lasts the longest and it's got the most cold energy. Cubes melt a little faster. They do work good, especially if you're going to throw some beer, soda, water, whatever in the cooler. The cooler itself weighs 17 pounds. These are the accessories I started out with. So basically, cord to plug it into the general, power cord to plug it into the wall, like for camping, or whatever you want to plug it into. If you got a converter or something, you can plug it in wherever. I have the Y duct and dual tubing kit. I have an extender and I have two couplings. So what I've done so far is basically put the thing in my front seat, my passenger seat, and ride around with it. And I have a few clips of that. Right now today, 79, 80 degrees in the shade. Quite humid. Yesterday it was 90 degrees with 71, 72% dew point. So pretty darn sticky, especially for our area. So I've been wanting to try this. Like I said, it doesn't get super hot here. Not like some of the southern states. And this thing was actually made in Texas, designed in Texas. So they know a thing or two about hot. So we're gonna give it a whirl. Like I said, I've done quite a bit of testing for the 4th of July parade. Left the doors on, pulling the kids on the float. You know, you're moving at 2, 3, 4 miles an hour. So I had this thing just sitting in the cab, 2 8-pound blocks of ice, and it's 2.5 quarts of water in the bottom. Is it like sitting in a freezer? No. But like they say, it blows like as hard as your car vent on high, like 25 miles an hour. So when you're sitting in here, it feels pretty darn good. It's definitely a huge difference from not having it. So ultimately what I want to do is I have my roto cap. So what it's going to do, let me just move this quick, is this going to get slid to the back. Drop the roto cap down, close the tailgate obviously, and I want to punch a hole through the back wall just in this plastic panel here. So it's not like I'm ruining anything if it doesn't work real well. You can either replace it or I'll just have somebody make a plug for it. So I'll come through right here and then just run a duct up each side so it can blow down on top of you, or they're all flexible so you can. I actually found the other day that during that parade, I would actually take this duct and just poke it up underneath my shirt, and it made a huge difference. Like I said, that day it was 97, 98 degrees, about that same 70%, 71% dew point. So it was hot, especially sitting in the cab of this thing out on the blacktop in the blazing sun. It was hot. So I had this thing, just one tube up underneath my shirt, one tube blowing on my head, and it made it bearable. Actually, it was a lot more than bearable. It was decent. Not that I would want to do that for a long time, but it works good. We were out there for 3+ hours. Thing still had lots of ice in it. We went back to my parents' place. Everybody came back there with us, and actually my mom and I sat in front of this thing out in the driveway, and we ran it for another probably 2-3 hours before all the ice was gone. And we're like, it's now blowing air still, but it's not cold, dry air like it was before. So it definitely does work. What I'm worried about mounting it back here is that the heat from the motor coming up through the box, this thing has vents underneath the lid, which pulls the air in. It's designed as a personal cooling device. So I don't think it's really that big a deal that it's pulling the air from the box, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna work a fair amount better if it was pulling air from the cab. So I haven't 100% figured that out yet, but I'm gonna try it. Like I said, I'm gonna do some more having it just sitting in the front seat with me and see how it works that way. But I think today I'm gonna take the rotocap off. I'm gonna put the hole in this back panel. Like I said, this is like 40 bucks. Worst case scenario, I either have to replace this panel or I have to put a plug in it. Obviously I don't want a big hole going to the back of the box before I drill a hole in my really nice rotocap, because I don't really want to do that until I know that it's going to work good. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take the rotocap off, punch the hole through the cab, and get the Icy Breeze all hooked up and just go right around and see what kind of temperature difference we can see in the cab. Like I said, I'll be using my Fluke. We'll get a good baseline of what it is outside. Like I said, it is humid. It's 70% plus dew point out here right now. So even at 80 degrees, it's pretty sticky. And yeah, we'll get it all figured out and see what the difference is in the cab. Leaving the full doors on or the spike upper doors on, and just kind of see what temperature range we're getting. I did a bunch of sealing in the cab. I did a bunch of sealing around all of my joints and stuff where it goes into the cab. I had a few spots actually right here in the cowl. There's rivets, plastic push pins all along here when you take the hood off. And when I'd wash it or I'd take it out in the rain, I was getting a few drips of water that would drip down onto my feet. And my Inferno heater is down there, the fan. And it was dripping on top of that. And I'm like, definitely don't want to wreck that. So I pulled all the pins out, put a silicone dab on each one, and put new, a little bit thicker pins inside the cowl piece. And it seems to have completely taken care of that water drip. So we'll find out the next time it rains real hard, but I sprayed it with the pressure washer and didn't get any water on the floor. So anyway, let's get the rotocap off. Let's get the Icy Breeze temp mounted. It's just, like I said, it's gonna sit in the box, but ultimately it's gonna have the rotocap on it if it works good. So I can close it down. Nobody can see it to steal it or mess with it. It's in out of the sun. It does get warm in there, obviously, but it's not nearly as hot as what it'd be if it was sitting out in the sun by itself. So I think that's gonna be a help. Plus, then I could put it in there. I have my other cargo box. I'll end up moving it, one way or the other. So I still got all my room for my cargo box and straps and stuff. And I think it's gonna be interesting. So stick around. All right, guys. It's about 83 degrees. The humidity is in the 70s. Pretty humid. Here's what I did. 2.5-inch hole saw. Put the Y in from the inside, and then connected the Y up. Run it up to the cage. Just zip tie it to the cage for now. The wiring I'll clean up. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do exactly. Probably run that in the tunnel. But I'm gonna run and get some ice. So there it is. It goes through the firewall, or whatever we want to call this back wall, like super tight. I mean, there's no chance of getting any sort of dust or anything in there. I had to force it heavy-handedly, we'll say. But it blows out. That's on high. Obviously low is going to be your best cooling, but because of it being mounted in the box, so it's not actually taking any of the inside cab air, it's not taking that humidity out. So it's cooling inside the cab. Obviously it's cool, dry air, but it's not actually going to take a lot of that humidity out of the cab because the vents are inside the lid of the cooler. So that's going to be the tough part. We're going to go get some ice and give her a shakedown run. Like I said, I've ran it with the cab in the cab before on my passenger seat, and it works good. So now it's just a matter of how much different is it outside the cab on top of the box or inside the box. So we're gonna go do that, and we'll get back with you and see what kind of results we got. All right, guys. So I'm mowing down some, not mowing down, running over some super tall grass that's over in my side woods, where normally it's pretty tall. It's as tall as the general most places. You can tell that. I've already got that down. So anyway, this says 89.4 degrees. The temp probe end is just sitting right there. So if I take this thing, stick her up in here, which is blowing on the back of my neck, I can get it to sit there for long enough. We'll get a temperature of what this thing is putting out. Like I said, I'm just kind of plowing through the woods in low range 4-wheel drive because it won't go in 2-wheel drive. It's muddy back in this area. Even with these 32-inch own backs, which is a pure mud tire basically. 2-wheel drive, it wants to spin. I don't want to get it all full of mud, so at this exact point in time, I figure it's a good place to test in low range, giving it some RPMs. So we'll check that in a second. Like I said, I don't know where the temp probe is for this thing, but it's saying 121 degrees. So somewhere right around the outside of this general is definitely hot. It's mid 80s outside, 83, 84, 85, somewhere in that range, with a lot of humidity. So it looks like we're getting about 69 degree air blowing out of these vents, which I'm pretty happy with. Like I said, I'm in here with my windows closed, so you know, it's like a, I don't know, like a sauna kind of. It's all open where the sun can come in. But with these two blowing on me, and if you had two people, obviously these things, I got them set up so that it's stretched from here up, and then you can move this and pull it down and push it up. And so if you're not using it, you just push her up against the ceiling, and it doesn't interfere with anybody with their helmet on or off. No air is going to come through here, so then you get, maybe at some point I'll have to get a cap this thing, or just pull it out and take it apart and put a cap in this back firewall or back panel, whatever you want to call it. So it's still dropping. I just put 20 pounds of ice in it, probably almost 30. So a 20-pound bag, and then probably at least a quarter, so maybe less than 30, but more than 20. So 68 degrees now, 68.5. When it's mid 80s and humid, and I'm running through the woods, so it's not able to cool it down as fast. I didn't pre-cool the cooler either. That's the other thing you can do, is pre-cool it, where basically you put the ice and water in, just let it sit in there and get the water cold. Obviously the colder the water is, the colder the temperature that comes out of the AC breeze. So at this point, I would have to say it'd be better if the cooler was inside the cab. So maybe if you had a 4-seater that was completely enclosed and you had a room to put the cooler inside, it would take more humidity out of the inside of the cab if it was sealed up really well. But having 68 degree air blow on the back of your head or neck or up your shirt or whatever inside this cab feels 100% better than not having any air blow on you at all. Because you wouldn't be able to sit in here without these windows and completely unzipped. And then the bugs come in, for one. For two, it's actually hotter outside than it is in the cab by a decent margin. And especially going through this thick swamp grass, I don't really want all that inside of my cab on top of me, because as I'm driving, bugs and all the crap is flying in. You can see some of it laying on the hood. But so I think it definitely does work. I think it would probably work best if you could put the cooler inside the cab, but it's definitely a huge improvement. So I'll kind of do a quick review at the end of it, but I think it's definitely a thing. And I'll use it for sporting events. We have 4 boys, all in football and soccer and the RC cars and all kinds of stuff. So as a personal cooling device, yeah, I'll bring it, take it to their events, plug it in, put the battery pack on it, whatever you want to use or wherever you're at. We also go camping and such, so you can have it sit guys, just want to give you a quick view of what we got going on. So I disconnected the actual cooler, and that's all that sticks out. I'll probably have a cap made for that thing. You can see the hoses through the back window. Here's the Y splitter, and then when I'm not using it, I just push them in, tuck them up in here behind that bag, which if you don't have the bag, I think they'll stay up there anyway. They're flexible, but you know what I did is I pulled this stretch all the way out and then, you know, squeeze this all in so that this part up here is firm, but then yeah, they're sitting up here tight to this bag. So they don't obstruct the view of your rear view. They don't make any noise. They won't introduce any heat. I will put a cap on to make sure no dust blows up in there. I'll probably use it a few more times before I put my roto cap back on, and then drill the hole in the roto cap and basically finish done. In conclusion, I would say if you're looking for something that's going to be air conditioned like your house, this is not going to be the ticket. It's marketed as a personal air conditioning unit, and that's exactly what it does. That being said, when it's 85 degrees, 70 some percent dew point, which is, you know, pretty uncomfortable, obviously not the hottest today, it's bearable. I can sit in this thing with the doors completely closed, the icy breeze on, I'm by myself. I put about 30 pounds of ice in the cooler and ride around, and I'm comfortable. Does it cool the cab down? That's questionable. I would say probably not a whole lot, but it keeps you cool, which is the important part. So I would say it does what it's supposed to do. If you're buying it just for the sake of, yeah, I want to cool my cab, that's up to you. If you do a lot of riding where it's hot, I would say it's worth it. For me, in our region, and like I said, it doesn't get super hot usually, although this year's definitely been a little different than other years. But I would definitely say if you're going to use it for sporting events, camping, boating, you know, if you have multiple uses for this thing, hands down, absolutely worth it. It's a 7-day cooler, even if you don't use the cooling mode. So, I mean, you can throw your beer, soda, water, whatever inside of this thing and use it out at the ball diamond, out at the track, you know, if you're into racing stuff. That was the other thing I'm going to use it for. I think it'll be pretty slick in that way. If it's super hot, I will pretty much pay anything to, you know, get myself back down to normal temperatures, or as much as possible when it's 100 degrees out. So I would say it's definitely worth it. I'll leave a link in my description. You guys click on it, you can go check it out and see what you think. But I would definitely put my money on this again. It would be nice if it blew a little bit harder, but again, I have the Y duct with the doubles, so that either I can blow 2 on myself or 1 on me and 1 on my passenger. If you had a 4-seat, I'm not really sure what you do with that. I don't know. I have a 4-seat on order actually, so that may be a thing that I'll be trying once that comes in, but I think that's going to be more towards fall before I actually get it. So I'll let you know how that works, but yeah, I would say at this point, definitely a thing that you should invest in.